Why we need glucose? The simple answer to that question is because we have a brain. The brain's favorite energy source is glucose. Although the brain can use ketone bodies, it cannot use fatty acids because of the blood-brain barrier. In addition, the brain will access ketone bodies only when they reach quite high concentrations in the bloodstream. In fact, when glucose in the plasma drops, the brain sends instructions through the hypothalamus and the autonomic nervous system to the pancreas and adrenal glands, releasing glucagon, epinephrine, and cortisol, and instructing the liver to restore plasma glucose by glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis. Both of these processes are activated during fasting or under certain dietary conditions. Glucose production in the liver is a coordinated process between glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis. Glycogenolysis breaks down glycogen, providing glucose from glycogen stores, whereas gluconeogenesis will use smaller molecules as precursors like pyruvate, lactate, glycerol, and other carbon skeletons derived from amino acids to produce glucose. Both of these pathways, glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis, are more active in the fasting state. Unlike glycogenolysis, which will stop when glycogen stores are depleted, gluconeogenesis can go on for prolonged periods of fasting. Hence the importance of gluconeogenesis in prolonged fasts. The reason we want to make new glucose to resupply the bloodstream, remember, this is a glucose producing as opposed to glycolysis being a glucose consuming. Very important. Appreciate the difference. This is a pathway that will produce, make glucose. Glycolysis consumes glucose. So again, gluconeogenesis is therefore most likely to occur when you are in a fasting state. And what you want is to make glucose to restore blood glucose so that tissues that are entirely like red blood cells are entirely dependent on glucose for their energy. They have no other energy producing pathway. You should have appreciated that after glycolysis. That's the only pathway that red blood cells have for energy production, is glycolysis. So they need a constant supply of glucose. So do other tissues, including the brain. The brain is not exclusively dependent on glucose, but for the most part, it really is. It can only use ketone bodies, but for the most part, the brain is also highly dependent on glucose. Testes, kidney, medulla are also dependent on glucose. So the one thing I want you to think about is this is kind of an important big picture. So what is the important organ that's going to resupply the blood with glucose? The liver. It's the main organ where gluconeogenesis occurs. The kidney does a little bit, but 90% of glucose that's made and released to the bloodstream is made in the liver. So this is another important thing to kind of keep an eye on, the tissues. So here are some of the tissues that really require a constant supply of glucose. Glycogen stores can work for producing glucose as well. However, these stores in the liver are limited, meaning there's a finite amount of glycogen. So anyway, we will cover that in the next block. So you need to make glucose. Once this amount is exhausted, you have to make glucose from other smaller molecules. And these smaller molecules are listed here. 3 types of smaller molecules you are starting with. Amino acids and the keto acids derived from those amino acids, and we'll talk about those. Glycerol can be used, but it's really a minor precursor. And importantly, both lactate and pyruvate are very important precursors for the synthesis of glucose, de novo synthesis of glucose. Okay, again, 90% of that occurs in the liver. If you like this video, please subscribe. Thank you.